Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I'd like to welcome you all. We'll start our second session for the day. Our second session for the day will be about entrepreneurship. There is always a question, are entrepreneurs born, are they being taught? And if they are being taught, how? And how can we make a new generation of entrepreneurship? It's my pleasure really to introduce our keynote speaker today. He's Michael Moe. And Michael Moe is really an authority in technology incubation, growth, and education investment. He's the co-founder of Global Silicon Valley Asset Management, GSV Advisors. He's more than 25 years of investment experience. I'll let him complete the bio. It's a very impressive bio, so he'll give us some details about it, and we'd like to welcome Mr. Michael Moe.
Yeah, good afternoon. It's really my honor to be here. I am delighted to have the opportunity to share with you some perspective on innovation and entrepreneurism and the global Silicon Valley that we see emerging. But just to give you some context for some of my remarks, as was mentioned, my background has been focused for the last 25 plus years on identifying and investing in what I call the stars of tomorrow, which are innovative growth companies that are trying to transform the marketplace. But in addition to being an advisor and investor, I've been an entrepreneur. In fact, I've started 5 different businesses over the past 15 years or so. And I think as you talk about how important knowledge is for the entrepreneur, particularly in the knowledge-based economy that we're in, I think it's also probably important for entrepreneurs to not know so much, because if they knew everything that was going to be facing them, they might not start the businesses that are so important for them to start. So to give you some context, I've got some facts to share. Now, while some of these facts are specific to the United States and some are global, the basic fundamentals of being an entrepreneur, I think, are universal. So let me start you with some fast facts. Every day in America, 2,700 companies are formed. Every day in America, 2,200 companies fail. The probability of a company surviving its first 3 years is 10%. In 2011, 3,673 companies were funded by venture capitalists. In 2011, just 53 companies, venture-backed companies, went public. What kind of nut would start a business? So let me give you some context or some other examples of people and characteristics of entrepreneurs and people that do things that seem implausible and have persistence. So see if you can name this nut. He failed in business in 32. He ran as a state legislature and lost in 32. He tried business again in 33 and failed again. His sweetheart died in 35. He had a nervous breakdown in 41. He was defeated for the nomination of Congress in 43, defeated again for Congress in 48, defeated when he ran for Senate in 55, defeated for vice presidency in 56. He ran for Senate in 58 and lost. And the answer is, I know, it's Abraham Lincoln, who's perhaps the U.S.'s greatest president. And I guess the point there is just the persistence that led to greatness was to keep on, after failing and having setbacks, but to keep on trying. And that's a common characteristic that you see in the great entrepreneurs who really do things. When Steve Jobs came back to Apple after he was fired, this was the model that they came out with and put everywhere. It said, here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs and the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules. They have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, you can disagree with them, you can glorify them, or you can vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. While some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. Some other crazy people that made things happen. Thomas Edison, the person who invented the phonograph, the motion picture, and the electric light bulb. He said that success was 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. Founded General Electric, $240 billion market cap today. Steve Jobs, our generation's Thomas Edison, started Apple Computer in 1976 with his buddy Steve Wozniak to create what he called an insanely great computer. This was an insanely great computer, looked like in 1976. Was fired 9 years later, came back in 1996, brought us the iPad, brought us the iPod, brought us the iPhone, iTunes, everything. Today, Apple, $625 billion market value business. Walt Disney was fired from his previous job because he was told that he wasn't creative enough. Started Disney Corporation in the back of a realtor's office in Los Angeles in 1923. Again, the Magic Kingdom today, nearly $100 billion market value. Sam Walton started, his first store was called Walton Five and Dime in Missouri. It closed because it didn't do enough business. He thought he'd do it again. He opened up a second store in Missouri. Again, shut down, went bankrupt, kept on going. What became Walmart, largest retailer in the world, $250 billion market cap today. Howard Schultz, the founder of Starbucks, thought the opportunity to bring the Italian coffee bar experience to the world was something that his time had come. In fact, was denied funding from over 50 investors before somebody finally backed him. Today, Starbucks global brand, $35 billion market value. Larry Page and Sergey Brin started Google in a garage literally to organize the world's information. $250 billion market cap. Google Earth, YouTube, a bunch of other great brands. Sir Richard Branson was denied, went to over 50 banks to get capital to start Virgin. It's a great picture of Richard Branson, by the way, isn't it? So today, Virgin being ubiquitous with just about everything, $25 billion market value. Li Ka-shing was dropped out of school when he was 15 years old after his father died, worked in a factory 16 hours a day, decided to start a plastics business, became a real estate person. Hutchison Whampoa, $105 billion market value today. Jack Ma was turned down at college twice. He couldn't get into college. Finally did. Started Alibaba, $65 billion market value. Muhammad Yunus thought there'd be an opportunity by providing small amounts of money to poor people in communities and villages. And in fact, he was right. Microfinancing was wildly successful. He got the Nobel Peace Prize in 2006. J.K. Rowling, unemployed, a single mother, couldn't get anybody to publish her books. Obviously, Harry Potter did okay, $15 billion of value. Again, these are all entrepreneurs that had an idea, that faced a lot of adversity, but just kept on pushing ahead and ultimately were successful. And so if I were to say the foundation of the successful entrepreneur is not to know how to quit, is not to know that you're going to have all sorts of challenges, because you are, but you just keep on pushing. And that's the common denominator of hundreds and hundreds of successful entrepreneurs that we've seen change the world. In terms about things changing, I think it's important when you look at entrepreneurs, it's where the future is, not where the past is. Things change. And just to give a perspective of how those things change, in 1925, if you looked at the 100 largest companies in the United States, 37 of them were in railroads, metals, and automobiles and auto parts. And if you fast forward to 2012, just 3 of those companies are in the top 100. If you look at IT, financials, and healthcare, 0 of them were in the top 100 largest companies in America. Today, 62 of the 100 largest companies in America are in those 3 industries. Things change over time. In 1920, Detroit, Michigan was what Silicon Valley is today. It was the home of innovation. It was where the automobile companies were headquartered. People moved there for seeking opportunity. Today, if you look at Detroit, Michigan, what it manufactures is dropouts from school. I mean, it's a huge unemployment, no innovation, very, very desperate place. In the 1930s, Silicon Valley was an apricot orchard. That's what existed there. There was no real industry. There was not anything of what you see today. And then 1939, Bill Hewlett and David Packard had this idea for a technology company, started in their garage. And the rest is history. When you look at Silicon Valley, it's the center of innovation in the world, with fabulous companies like Apple and Intel and Google and Facebook and Cisco, all headquartered within 30 miles of each other, that really sprung up from this initial idea. So, what is the secret of Silicon Valley? What's the secret sauce? Well, there's a number of things that all have come together in this ecosystem. You have people that come from around the world to seek their fame and fortune, but take risk. And failure is something that is actually looked at as being a step towards success. You have supporting services firms, you have venture capital, you have great universities, you have corporate partners, you have, and of course, a very robust venture capital community and a culture that's about growth and innovation. In 1987, Ronald Reagan gave this speech called Tear Down This Wall in Berlin, Germany. And the explosion of globalization has been something that is absolutely breathtaking. You look at the shift that's taken place in the global marketplace in terms of where growth is happening, where value is being created. In 1995, the United States had just under 5% of the world's population and about 30% of global GDP and about 50% of global market cap. Fast forward to today, again, just under 5% of the population, but now just 22% of global GDP and just 33% of global market cap, as other markets around the world are rapidly driving global GDP, and innovation is flourishing from around the world. You're seeing a connected world driven by the internet, where China in the last 3 years has created more internet users than exist in the United States, and the growth continues. Looking at where the large media businesses, internet users are, most of them are from the United States, and the increasing part are from outside the United States. And so what we're saying, and a big part of the reason why I'm here, is while Silicon Valley has been the epicenter of innovation and growth over the last 30, 40 years, what we see taking place is that mindset that is focused in Silicon Valley has really gone viral. So Silicon Valley is no longer just a geography, it's a mindset that's going around the world. It's really becoming the global Silicon Valley. And so we say whether it's Austin or Boston or Chicago to Sao Paulo, from Mumbai to Shanghai to Scandinavia to Saudi Arabia, we're seeing this innovation mindset, this entrepreneurism that looks at problems and tackles them and makes things happen, taking off. And we think that's really, really vital. And we think that's why a conference like what's going on here today is so important and so exciting. We have people here, and I'll give a quick shout out to Tim Bowden, for example, at Blue Vine Ventures, bringing Silicon Valley, connecting to Saudi Arabia. And we're seeing that connecting of entrepreneurs and capital and support happening around the globe. And we think this is truly going to result in breakthrough innovation and growth and opportunities. In terms of what are the fundamentals or the characteristics of great entrepreneurial growth companies, it's really embedded in what I call the 4 Ps of a business. Because it's these 4 Ps that are the common denominator of every great entrepreneurial growth company that's been successful that I'm aware of. The first P is people. There's no shortage of interesting ideas, but it's always the people that make a difference. And so a lot of these companies don't have long histories, but the people do have histories. And so to make a great business work, you're always looking for this entrepreneur that's looking to shoot the moon and can surround himself with a team that can be successful. So whether you're talking about business, whether you're talking about politics, whether you're talking about sports, one person really can make a difference to make things happen. Look what Steve Jobs did at Apple. Here's a quick example. I like sports. To give you an example, here's what one person did for a sports franchise, Michael Jordan. So when Michael Jordan went to the Chicago Bulls in the NBA, they were the worst team in professional basketball. That's why they got an opportunity to draft Michael Jordan. At that time, the Chicago Bulls were getting $12 a ticket They had 261,000 fans their first year. 5 years later and 4 World Championships later, the ticket prices had more than doubled and their attendance had more than tripled. That resulted in an $18 million delta. So certainly one person can make a difference, and we see that over and over in terms of the entrepreneurial companies. Product. Here's what we're looking for are companies that have lead what they do, have a proprietary product, a one-of-a-kind growth company, something that makes them special, different, or great. When you're looking at technology, generally speaking, and the internet specifically, it's all about disproportionate